So there's this big city lawyer. He's duck hunting in rural Arizona. He shoots a bird which falls over the fence into a field. And as he's climbing the fence, a farmer drives up on a tractor and asks him, "What are you doing?" The lawyer explains he's retrieving the duck he shot, and the farmer tells him, "Well, that's not going to happen." "Oh, really?" asks the lawyer, who then explains he is one of the best trial attorneys in the nation and that he will sue the farmer and win if the farmer keeps him from getting the duck. Then the farmer explains, "Well, you must not know how we settle things around here." The farmer proceeds to tell the lawyer about the Arizona 3-kick rule, according to which each person kicks the other 3 times back and forth until the other gives up. "You're on," says the lawyer. Sure, he can take the old guy. The farmer goes first, and he plants a solid kick with his work boot into the lawyer's gut. And then when he's down, his face, and then ends with another kick to the kidney. The lawyer had been close to giving up, but now it was his turn. "Okay, old man, my turn." To which the farmer says, "Actually, I give up. You can have the duck." Different places do things differently. Here are some interesting facts about how people do things in different states. If you're from Nebraska, your official state soft drink is Kool-Aid. If you're from Delaware, people are outnumbered by chickens 200 to 1. Now, Virginia can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're from Ohio, your state flag is the only flag that's not a true rectangle. It's a little more triangular shaped, which I thought was wild. Minnesota has over 50 different species of mosquitoes. And Minnesotans will tell you that mosquitoes are their state bird. Jokingly. Different places do things differently. Jesus was from heaven, and he was always doing things that made people say, "What? That's not the way we do things here. You must be from somewhere else." You see, down here, if somebody hurts you, you find some way to get them back. But Jesus says, you have enemies? Love your enemies. Pray for them. Now, that's not the way we do things down here. Down here, you get as many people as you can to serve you. That's greatness around here. Jesus says, you want to be great? In heaven, you become great by learning to serve others. Down here, we turn all sorts of good things into bad things by making good things into idols. We turn things like money, sex, power into gods. And these are what we live and die for down here. Jesus says, where he comes from, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Money, sex, and power are not bad. God created them. They're good in proper context. But they are absolutely terrible gods. Different places do things differently. Jesus is from heaven. Where are you from? I don't know how many of you have heard of the movie Miracle, starring Kurt Russell. It's about a U.S. hockey team at the 1980 Winter Olympics. Now, this is where the American hockey team is going to attempt the impossible. They're going to try and beat the Soviet hockey team at the Olympics. Now, everyone at the time knows the Soviets are going to win. They're a better team, and what's more, the American team can't even seem to get along with each other. After all, These players are all from rival college teams and some of them literally hate each other. During the first half of the movie, the coach gets to know his players by asking two questions. Where are you from? And who do you play for? So, where are you from, he asks one player, and who do you play for? Well, one player says, Madison, Wisconsin. University of Wisconsin. Another guy answers, University of North Dakota. Well, how about you? The UMD Bulldogs. And leading up to the Olympics, this team is just not playing well. They're not playing as a team. A lot of them are playing as rivals. And that's kind of how things are done down here. Life down here on Earth is often played that way. For example, I'm a Canadian, and there are other countries that I'm not a fan of. Or, well, I'm conservative, and we don't really like liberals. Or, I'm a liberal, and we don't really get along with those conservatives. Or maybe I'm upper class, and we can't really stand people who live off the system when they could be working. Or I'm lower class, and I can't stand those rich snobs looking down their noses at people like me. That's kind of how things are done around here. We carve each other into groups, and we like some groups but not others. At the time Paul was writing his letter to the Colossian church, the Colossian culture was also divided into groups at odds with each other. Here are some of the groups. Colossians 3:11 says, Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free. Now here in this verse, we find multiple ways of dividing people into groups. There's a major religious and ethnic divide between Gentiles and Jews, also referred to as the circumcised and uncircumcised. Then you have a major cultural and ethnic division, which divided people into the cultured Greeks, the inventors of philosophy, the pioneers of democracy, and the uncultured barbarians. Incidentally, barbarians didn't call themselves barbarians. It was the Greeks that called other people barbarians. And it started with the Greeks making fun of how other people talked. Did you hear that, foreigner? It sounded like he was saying bar, 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 bar. Let's call those people barbarians. Barbarians. Barbarian was originally a term used to make fun of non-Greeks. And then in this division, you have the Scythians, who were especially barbarous, warlike barbarians. And in addition to the religious and cultural and ethnic divisions, Paul also mentions an economic or class division, slaves or free. Carving people into this or that group just seems to be how we do things down here, how we've always done things down here. Now let's go back to that American hockey team for a second. As long as this hockey team sees itself as a collection of divided loyalties playing for different college teams, they weren't going to make it very far in the 1980 Olympics. Now, at one point, the hockey team plays a pre-Olympic game against a mediocre team. The Americans should have totally won, but they ended up tying with the team, and that wasn't very good. So after the game, the coach is angry, and he says, "You guys don't want to work during the game? All right, no problem. We'll work now." He lines them up at the goal line, blows the whistle. Down and back they skate to the other rink and back again. Again, the coach says. Whistle blows, down and back. Again, again, again. They're coughing. They're wheezing. Again. Hours later, everyone else has left the stadium. Again. The men are so exhausted, the team doctor is saying the coach has to stop doing this. The assistant coach blowing the whistle can't bring himself to blow it again. Again, says the coach. Finally, one of the players shouts his own name, Mike Irizion, with an accent on the ruse, so to speak. Followed by Winthrop, Massachusetts, telling them where he's from. The coach stops, looks at him, and asks, "Who do you play for?" The player says, "I play for the United States of America." Coach says, "That's all, gentlemen. Let's go home." Even though each of the players had played for different universities, they'd forgotten that they had put on a jersey that said USA. Even though we all come from different political, socioeconomic, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds, if you're a disciple of Jesus, then you have put on Jesus. What does your jersey say? Who are you playing for? Colossians 3, 9 through 11 says, "You have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge, in the image of its creator. Here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all." So, where are you from? What uniform are you wearing? There are two questions to wrestle with as you learn from the book of the chapter of Colossians 3, and consider how disciples are to live in the world. And that is a question we've already heard: where are you from? And the second question is, how can you hate what's wrong and choose what's right? As a disciple of Jesus, you have laid aside the old self, and you have put on the new self. You have put on Christ. You've put aside all your many labels and have put on one identity, Christ. So long as you see yourself as part of this group, which is way better than that group, you're going to keep living the same, serving the same idols, making the same wrong decisions, because you're living as if you're from around here, from around earth. Yet, if you've placed your faith in Jesus, you are no longer from around here. This world is no longer home. Colossians 1:13 says, "For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves." Jesus is from heaven. He doesn't do things the way that they're done down here. He lives a different way, and you and I are part of his kingdom now. So the message of Colossians 3 is basically going to be this: Christ reigns. You're in his kingdom now, so live like a citizen of his kingdom. Down here on earth, people think that in order to have success, you have to run over more and more people. In order to have fun, you've got to do more and more sin. In order to have security, you've got to store up more and more stuff. But you're not from around here anymore. You are part of his kingdom. So think about that kingdom and remind yourself of who really reigns. Back to verse 1 through 4 of Colossians 3. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your heart on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Since heaven is your home, and it affects what you think is good and bad, beautiful and disgusting, this is actually why Paul uses such strong language for how we're to feel about sin. He says, see yourself as dead to it. Fling it away from you like it's something filthy. Sin is bad. You have died and been raised to new life, according to Colossians 3, 1 through 3. Being from somewhere else than down here directly determines how we react to sin. And to describe our relationship with sin, Paul uses two pictures of old versus new. His first picture is death and life, and the second picture is old clothes and new clothes. Colossians 3, 5 to 7. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. You used to walk in these ways, in the life you once lived. And in Colossians 3, 8 to 10, we have the old clothes and new clothes metaphor. You have taken off your old self with its practices and put on the new self. Take a second here. Can you think of something that you came into contact with at some point which you immediately found absolutely revolting? And you didn't need to pause and wonder if it was bad for you. You know, a spider suddenly lands on your arm, or you look down and the milk in your cup is spoiled. There are things we instinctively fling away or spit out. This is how Paul says we should see things like sexual immorality, greed, rage, and filthy language. And these include what people want, the list we find in Colossians 3, verse 5, and what people say, the list we find in Colossians 3, verse 8. There are some things we citizens of heaven ought to think of as just gross. Why? Because we're from heaven, and we have experienced a much better way to live. And so that is the answer to the second question. How do we hate what's wrong and choose what's right? By living that identity as citizens of the kingdom. Amen. There are probably sins in these lists that you already hate. But there are probably sins that you have trouble hating at times. You might even have a liking for some of them. How can you start hating sin so you can choose what's right? How can you, as a disciple of Jesus, kill it in your life and fling it away as if it's something disgusting? The answer to both of our questions is the same. The questions of where are you from and how can you hate what's wrong and choose what's right? The answer to both of these questions is you are from heaven. Being a citizen of Jesus' kingdom, you now know what it's like to be filled with peace and surrounded by grace. So when you reflect on things above, not on earthly things, you are no longer attracted to sexual immorality, raging against people, abusing people, etc. Because you've experienced the grace and the peace that comes with being a citizen of Jesus' kingdom. I don't know how many of you have heard of the author Randy Alcorn. He's a Christian author who writes both nonfiction and fiction, very often about the subject of heaven. So in his novel called Dominion, one of the main characters has died and is in heaven. In heaven, he's having a conversation with an angel. And in a paraphrase, here's basically what he says. It's wonderful beyond belief here to have a body and soul free of compulsion to sin. I can't understand how disobedience ever appealed to me when all along it hurt God, hurt me, and hurt everyone else. Sin never did any good. Why did I do it? I'd no sooner commit a sin against God now than I would have drank a gallon of motor oil when I was on earth. It has no attraction. It's just so repulsive now. Sadly, sometimes down here, sin doesn't seem so repulsive. It's just the way things work down here. Satan is a very talented liar. And that's why we have to work so hard to not forget that we are not from around here. In light of heaven, sexual immorality, greed, unforgiveness, and so many other things should be as attractive as drinking a gallon of motor oil. So in the meantime, think of Colossians 3, verses 1 to 2. Set your hearts on the things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Jesus is coming back. Heaven is on its way in its fullness. And that is your home from now into eternity. It doesn't matter how things are done here. We are citizens of that perfect kingdom. In the meantime, disciples of Jesus live in this world like this. We practice heaven. I'm sure you've picked up on the theme of the last several weeks. It's discipleship, right? We've been talking about what it means to be a disciple. The fact that Jesus' life and teachings are central. They need to be the focus of being a disciple. And we talked about the truth that disciples of Christ make disciples. There is no alternative. And that discipling is best done through intentional relationships within the church, with each other, to help us grow closer to Jesus and love him more. And with those outside of the church, to help people eventually come to trust and follow Jesus. Disciples make disciples through intentional relationships. And today we have talked about how it is that disciples live in this world as followers of Jesus. They practice heaven. They act and live as though they are in heaven right now because we are already members. Now, in the Great Commission, Jesus sends his disciples to live as his disciples in the world and to make disciples. And now he is sending each and every one of us. Oh. You are sent. There's a hymn that I'm going to play. And I want you to, if you can, sing along with it, or say the words, or just think the words, and think of them as a prayer to God, a prayer of commitment to His mission.
The harvest call comes o'er the wave. I'll go, and seek some struggling soul to save. I'll go, and press the fight against the foe. I'll spread the gospel light. I'll go. The harvest calls, the fields are wide. I'll go, and labor there for God and right. I'll go, and press the fight against the foe. I'll spread the gospel light. I'll go. Lost souls are wandering in the night. I'll go, and strive to lead them to the light. I'll go, and press the fight against the foe. I'll spread the gospel light. I'll go.
You are sent.